So there's a few things. I'm going to try to break this down into tips, all right? We're going to focus on hometowns. We're going to dig into niches. We are going to use home field advantage. We are going to curate, and we're going to signal. Try to keep me on track for those guys, okay? Small towns, home field advantage, curate, signal, and dig into niches, I think, something like that, okay? So first, this concept of small towns. Sonder is the best example of fighting big with small. Sonder had like 9,000 doors when they went public. If you guys don't know Sonder's story, they don't own a property. They're very much like my story. They own 0 properties and they went public at $1.8 billion. So when somebody says that Airbnb arbitrage isn't valid, sure, you don't own any real estate, but like owning Facebook might actually be better than owning real estate. That's the same kind of concept, right? But they went public and now they do entire buildings, 100-unit buildings. That's what they focus on. And they only really do big cities like Chicago, New York, Philadelphia. And yes, they do New York because they get hotel licenses to do it. So you're not ever going to really see them somewhere like Birmingham, Alabama. And at the upspring of Sonder is when I told one of my students to go to Birmingham. He became the biggest host there and crushed it. So focusing on smaller towns allows you to be absent from the biggest hosts on the planet. And because of this, the average competitiveness of hosts go down. I just coached a woman last night, 66-year-old woman, great woman, business owner from the Ukraine, built it all herself. And she just got into Airbnb, and she got into Airbnb in Kissimmee, Florida. And she wanted to do like a minimalist hotel style, but she didn't do the market research to realize that everybody in Kissimmee is very good, and they do themed properties, and they spend tons of money. So she was getting murdered, and we just had to do a listing review last night. And this is kind of the same example. The amount of money that you need to spend to create a competitive product will be higher in these markets that are highly competitive. But in somewhere like Oklahoma City, it starts to go down. Birmingham, Alabama, it starts to go down. You're very much less likely to need to spend a ton of money on creating a good basic product. And what I mean by good basic product is you need to get out of the bottom. You don't necessarily need to be the top 50 listings, but you need to get out of the bottom. And that minimum bar of quality gets higher in these professional cities. Right? So home field advantage is the second way that you beat big hosts. See, markets require data. But if you grew up in Charlotte or like South Carolina, you would know everything about Charlotte. Is Charlotte South Carolina? See, this is an example. I'm not from the Carolinas. So if I wanted to invest in the Carolinas and I can't even tell you what cities are in what state, I already have a disadvantage to somebody who's lived in Charlotte their whole life. They know what's cool. They know where people like to go. They know why people come to Charlotte. I have to do all this research. And I might just not do enough research because a lot of us, remember one of my last videos, if you guys were here for that last live stream, thank you, is that this is a low barrier to entry business and we grow based on our skills and we grow to incompetence, right? Us big hosts, we're not that good at this. We're good at a couple aspects of it. We aren't multi-million dollar, $100 million, billion-dollar businesses with market research departments that do research and development. We are not that elegant. So we will make mistakes when we do research. So focus on your hometowns, develop in your hometowns, and these big companies, they'll have a lot of learning curve to catch up to you. You'll have huge advantages already. You'll also have an easier time hiring people and stuff like that. So home field advantage is huge. I teach all my new students to focus on home field advantage. Now, to dig into nuance, what I mean by this is to find properties that serve like specific group types that aren't really as duplicatable. And the sixth tip is to do what's not duplicatable. So we'll try to bonus round that. By digging into some nuance, digging into customer types that people don't really necessarily service as much or cannot service at scale, you'll make more money. For example, like ADA. This is a huge one, guys. If you go search an Airbnb right now for like a house that sleeps 8 people, and then search like step-free entry, 36-inch doorways, some markets have 1 or 0 properties out of like 1,000 doors. Like if you went to like Pigeon Forge, I bet you go to Pigeon Forge area where I was just speaking, Gatlinburg, and look for ADA accessible houses. There's like none, for example. And this would be serving something that doesn't scale, like digging into a nuance. And so you can do bachelorette parties, but those are easier to service at scale. You can do like you did a Dungeons and Dragons themed property, you like super service a bunch of like nerds, but you'd have to make sure you do it in the right cities. The founders of Dungeons and Dragons, I think, were like near Chicago. So you did a Dungeons and Dragons themed property, I'd probably do it in the suburbs of Chicago, for example. But to digress away from stuff like that. Now, curation. This is kind of an extension. Like the Dungeons and Dragons themed property could be a version of curation. So there are themes, But then there are curated looks. So for example, one of my oldest students made a aeronautical engineer curated space. It was actually a penthouse in Chicago. And he had all this stuff from like Boeing and Rolls-Royce, back when, you know, Rolls-Royce actually built plane engines first, by the way. And so it had all this stuff, like a lot of aeronautical history in the space. It was like a little mini museum. And he was showing something he knew a ton about, and he curated a space that other people with his shared passion would love. It wasn't a theme. It did not tell people to go away. And that's the main thing about a theme. A theme will cut out a part of the market, because if you do a Disney theme, people who don't like Disney aren't gonna go there. But a curated space that is classy, it had like the bomber jacket, wood leather, stuff like that. That stuff doesn't say go away because we are a theme, but there's gonna be a group of people that fall in love with it more because of the curation inside of it, okay? So there are themes that choose a market, and then there's curations that say, hey, we're cool property, but anybody in the know, we're even cooler, all right? So this aeronautical theme was really cool. And beyond that, you can signal. Signaling is a very subtle thing. So for example, like my coffee table books, like this is a book on gemstones, right? Obviously that's $100,000 of amethyst behind me, and then the little mini book of gemstones. Steampunk coffee table book, but I call this the Joan Didion effect, okay? So the Joan Didion effect would be, if you had a book by Joan Didion on the coffee table, no one knows who Joan Didion is. She's a highly like underrated like female writer from back in the day. But anybody who does know who Joan Didion is, who sees that the spine of your book says Joan Didion on it in a photo, would go, oh my God, this host must be the coolest host on the planet, something like that, right? So you can find extremely niche stuff that really signals who you are or who you could be, that it is extremely inexpensive. To buy a book with a prolific writer that no one knows about and have it in a photo will speak extremely strongly to somebody. To have a certain type of armoire, or to have a certain type of chandelier or lamp, or a certain type of artwork, or just all like a certain type of cooking stuff. The lady last night that I was helping her coach, I'm like, you know what we can do? We can go with like an Italian style home for you, and we should buy some like toys for your kitchen, like pasta extruders and just different stuff that families would think would be really cool to cook with. And that would be a way to signal to somebody that you understand what it's like to be a chef, and you've made this kitchen like a playground for chefs. So signaling would be to include things in your photos that are very specific, that don't sell, that like don't turn anybody off, again, like the whole idea of curation, but to a very small group of people, you signal a very strong signal that you're the type of host for them. Because if you guys were in that last video I was talking about, your vibe attracts your tribe. And to create a vibe in a space isn't just to create a cool looking space. Your space needs personality, and that personality needs to get along with the guest. Both your space and a guest have personalities, and they come together. And that's how you create a vibe. And so, to like double down on this, do something that's not duplicatable, right? If you can serve a group of people that doesn't get served at scale, then a big company's never gonna compete with you, ever, ever, ever. Yeah, still just over 100 properties, not at 150 anymore. We're doing more houses now too. We're actually breaking away from apartments and switching into more 3 and 4 bedroom houses, just as a deviation. You know, like what I told you guys about Hilton, right? I'm taking my own advice on that. But to do what's not duplicatable, if you can serve groups that aren't duplicatable at scale, then big people won't come in and try to take your lunch, because there's just not enough business to take your lunch. Big companies, if they want to do anything, they want to do it at 50 or 100 or 150 or 200 doors. Villas are cool. Yeah, do villas. Like villas in Dubai are really fun. Villas in Pan Asia are really fun. Villas in Tulum are really fun. But I would say villas in Tulum are probably duplicatable. An investment group could probably come and pick up 20 villas and do a whole thing in Tulum because they added an airport. But you could get in first, right? And once you're in a market, that's like probably maybe, thank you for adding this. Once you're in a market, it's really hard to pull you out of a market, right? Once you're entrenched and you have your systems, the vast, like a majority of investing in an Airbnb is the front end, right? You've got to pick up the property, negotiate the deal or buy it, and then you've got to furnish it, spend all the time painting it, making it ready to take the photos. And once it's listed, you just needed to operate at a marker in order to be worth keeping it. The bar of research, or the requirement to set it up, is higher than the bar to maintain it. So if you get into a market while it's favorable and you print $40,000 a year in profit, and then a big guy comes in and now you're only making $12,000 a year in profit, well, sure, you're making less money, but don't ever walk away from a deal where you're profitable just because you're making less money. A lot of people get out because they lose. They're like, oh, I'm losing so much money compared to what I made. Ignore that. You're still profitable. Keep the deal, or then try to sell the deal to like the big competition that's trying to do stuff, but don't let them know that you're bleeding like you are. One of my friends, they quit doing Airbnb in Dallas because they were making $17,000 a month net profit, and it dropped down to 7 and 8, and they were mad that they were only making 7 and 8, and then they quit. Where's the wherewithal, you know? So that's another thing. You want to beat big hosts, you probably should hang on a little longer than you think if things go south, because when the bottom falls out, people do quit. So let's imagine Sonder comes in and puts 1,000 doors in a market, and initially it washes everybody out, right? And you're under stress, everybody else is under stress. Instead of you quitting, let everyone else quit. Because remember, there's the people who are unserious, and then there's the people that are too serious. Well, the unserious people go, this ain't worth it anymore, and they'll give up. Meanwhile, you should be taking notes and come up with your curations and your deviations and stuff like that, and pick a product that Sonder can't compete with at scale, and just kind of like realign and then move forward and continue to make lots of money. I hope this is helpful, guys. And if it was, please like the video. Share with the host friends you love, and don't share with the people that you want to go out of business, because I promise this stuff does work. This is the biggest YouTube channel for Airbnb on the planet. We're about to hit 300,000 subscribers. This is really cool. So thank you for hanging out with me as we cross a huge milestone. The next video I think I want to do is how to get to 100 doors. This video is how to beat us at 100 doors, and the next video will be how to get to 100 doors if you want to join us instead. It's been so good to hang out with you guys. I'm going to go to the gym, have my Buc-ee's coffee. This video is sponsored by Buc-ee's. And I'll see you guys on the other side.